Vietnam, 1967. A young Marine sergeant named Mitchell Townsend is carefully wrapping a piece of copper wire around his M14 rifle. He knows this simple act could get him court-martialed, but he also knows it might be the only thing that can save his brothers. This is the incredible true story of the 75-cent modification that saved 2,000 Marines. In the dense jungles and rolling hills of Quang Tri Province, American Marines were being hunted. The enemy, North Vietnamese snipers, were armed with the Soviet Dragunov SVD. This formidable rifle could pick off a Marine from 800 meters away. One fateful day, Townsend watched in horror through his scope as 5 of his comrades were killed by an unseen enemy. He could see the muzzle flashes in the distance, but he couldn't shoot back. The frustration and helplessness were unbearable. Between January and June of 1967 alone, his battalion lost 17 men to this long-range threat. Morale was plummeting. But Mitchell Townsend was no ordinary Marine. Born to a sharecropping family in Mississippi in 1944, he learned a powerful lesson from his father, a World War II veteran. Excellence cannot be denied. Despite the racial barriers of the segregated South, young Mitchell developed an almost supernatural talent for shooting. By age 8, he was a prodigy. When he arrived at boot camp in 1963, his drill instructors scoffed at the idea of a black Marine being a top shooter. Townsend proved them wrong, qualifying as an expert marksman by hitting 48 out of 50 targets. He was born for this. Back in Vietnam, faced with an unsolvable problem, Townsend didn't just get angry, he got to work. For 6 long months, he wasn't just a Marine. He was a physicist, a ballistics expert. He devoured manuals, studied charts, and ran countless calculations in his head. He had to figure out how to make his M14 shoot as far as a Dragunov. The answer, when it came, was shockingly simple but dangerously illegal. He realized that by restricting the rifle's gas system, he could force more of the propellant gas to push the bullet, increasing its velocity and, therefore, its range. He needed a way to block the gas port. The solution? A simple piece of copper wire. He turned to Corporal Martinez, who, no questions asked, got him the wire from the base exchange. The cost? 75 cents. His friend Lance Corporal Riley saw what he was doing and warned him. "They'll court-martial you for damaging government property, Mitch." Townsend's reply was simple. Saving lives mattered more than any regulation. The ultimate test came on August 7, 1967. Intelligence reported that 2,000 Marines were about to move through a valley, the very same valley where NVA snipers were setting up an ambush. At dawn, Townsend and Riley were in position at an observation post, their eyes scanning the terrain. At 14:38 hours, they spotted them. 6 enemy soldiers, including 2 with Dragunovs, setting up at a range of 820 meters. Townsend radioed command for permission to engage. The answer came back, a death sentence for the Marines in the valley. Permission denied. Target is outside your weapon's effective range. Wait for air support. Air support was 20 minutes away. The ambush would be over by then. This was the moment. Townsend looked at Riley. If his theory was wrong, he was a dead man. If he was caught, his career was over. But if he did nothing, hundreds of his brothers would walk into a massacre. He made his choice. Adjusting his scope for the incredible distance, factoring in wind and elevation, he squeezed the trigger. The modified M14 bucked against his shoulder with a recoil he'd never felt before. He looked through his scope. Across the valley, 820 meters away, the enemy sniper jerked backward and fell. An impossible shot. He fired again, and again, and again. 4 shots, 4 hits, at ranges from 820 to 860 meters. The entire enemy sniper team was eliminated before they could fire a single round. Down in the valley, 2,000 Marines marched on, completely oblivious to the fact that their lives had just been saved by one man's courage and a 75-cent piece of wire. Of course, the story didn't end there. When they returned to base, Townsend was interrogated for hours by his superiors, Captain Morrison and Major Bradford. They examined the crude copper wire wrapped around his rifle. They were facing a dilemma. They couldn't officially approve of an unauthorized modification, But they couldn't ignore the fact that it had just prevented a catastrophe. Townsend received an official reprimand for damaging government property, but in the same breath, he was reassigned to the battalion's research and development team. His mission? To perfect his illegal invention. Over the next 3 weeks, that crude piece of wire evolved into a precisely machined gas regulator that could be installed on any M14. Testing confirmed the impossible. Modified M14s could now reliably hit targets at 900 meters. The Dragunov's deadly advantage was gone. By September, the first Townsend devices were being distributed to sniper teams throughout the Marine Corps. The results were immediate. During Operation Medina, Marine snipers began neutralizing enemy marksmen at extreme ranges, and casualty rates dropped significantly. The NVA were forced to change their tactics, their greatest weapon suddenly neutralized. An official analysis later estimated that Townsend's modification prevented approximately 2,000 Marine casualties. For his actions, Sergeant Townsend received the Navy Achievement Medal with Combat V. The citation was carefully worded, praising his technical innovation under combat conditions, while conveniently omitting the part about him breaking regulations to do it. He was also finally sent to Scout Sniper School, becoming one of the first Black Marines to earn the formal sniper certification. After the war, Townsend quietly left the Marines and became an automotive engineer, rarely speaking of his service. For decades, his story was known only to a few. Then, in 1989, a retired colonel recognized him at a reunion. "Sergeant Townsend," he asked, "do you have any idea how many of us are alive today because of you?" That recognition led to a paper that finally documented his contribution, and in 1997, he was honored at the Quantico Scout Sniper School. There, a plaque was unveiled, displaying the original copper wire modification. The inscription reads, "Sometimes courage means knowing when not to follow orders. Sergeant Mitchell Townsend, August 7, 1967. Mitchell Townsend passed away in 2011. His funeral was attended by hundreds of Marines, men whose lives he had touched, and many whose lives he had saved without them ever knowing it. Today, his medal and that 75-cent piece of copper wire are on display at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. His legacy teaches us a powerful lesson. True innovation often comes from the front lines, from those who see the problem up close. It's a story about the moral courage to challenge the rules when lives are on the line. As Townsend himself would insist, he was just a Marine doing his duty. But his story proves that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't about following orders, but about having the courage to do what's right. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as we did, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of forgotten heroes. We'll see you in the next one.